Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Destiny Movie Night Hangout. I'm your host, Mike, and I'm here with Gabriel from Belgium. Is that correct, Gabriel?
Yep.
And Joanna from London, and Valentin from Slovenia. Hey, guys.
Hi.
So the movie tonight, for those of you who've tuned in, is the movie Selfless, the 2015 movie starring Ryan Reynolds. And just getting right into it here. Just know that if you haven't seen the movie and you're watching this for the first time, there may be at times some spoiler alerts. But if you do watch this before the movie, it will probably aid in your movie experience. So not a problem if you watch this first. So just a brief synopsis here. The movie Selfless. It's kind of about the point of eternal life, basically through technology, and the story centers around a wealthy guy, basically like a billionaire type, a guy who has cancer and he's dying, but he wants to continue to extend his legacy, and thus like the point of eternal life. And there's the point of like, what's the cost of this? And we find out that basically he's harvesting like another being's vessel. That there was a monetary point. This guy basically was short on cash, and there was an arrangement made, and we find out that he's taking medication to basically suppress the memories of the other being, and so that he kind of takes precedence in the body, and it's kind of a bit of a thriller in a lot of ways because the rich guy who's inherited this new body didn't know that he was, the conditions, basically the price he was going to have to pay for making this decision that he's made. And so there's a lot of self-reflection that comes out about that, and just different relationship dynamics. So we'll get more into the specifics as we go with asking and answering some questions, as we got many questions here we'd like to kind of dive right into. So without further ado, first question for each of you guys. Joanna, you can go first. What was your perspective on this movie, just like about life in general? Like how did you see this movie, just kind of from a life perspective, like in reflecting on your own life, kind of thing?
Yeah, so Mike, this movie for me was like watching a live review on the screen. So for those who know live review, this is part of the EQAF. It's interviews from people that died and they tell about their story. But in this case, actually, he was still alive in another's body, but he was experiencing a new life, and he was seeing his own life into perspective. So because he was a wealthy man, and then suddenly he went into a body of someone that was actually like not rich at all. It was actually with lots of problems, and he was able to realize, as you said earlier, like self-introspection, to see what he was doing in the world and how he was affecting other people's lives. And what I liked about it as well, which is also part of our own eagerness to be part of the solution, was that he was then able to apply his skills into making a change into that person's life, and not accepting the system, which was the fact that he was part of that mafia going on of changing bodies. He actually made sure that he was stopping that whole nonsense. So that was something that I could definitely learn from, and also think about the whole principles of life. And yeah, I think Damien was an interesting character as well.
Cool. Anything to add to that, Valentin?
Yes, the point that resonated with me in the movie was father not spending time with the daughter, and then trying to compensate this with money, and also not respecting the work that his daughter was involved into. So it's similar in my life, where my father wanted to care for me in the way where he purchased a lot of material things, but he did not actually care about what I did and what I currently do. So he's looking down onto me, like don't caring what I do, thinking that it's childish things. So it's, yeah, this is what I find interesting in this movie.
Interesting. I remember that scene specifically, like when at first he's trying to give his daughter some money and she's almost resistant because that's been like the play out so many times. I remember thinking like at that time like, oh man, like a little ungrateful here, like I guess because she's been born with so much money the whole time. But like seriously, like if my dad was just pulling out the checkbook, thank you, thank you, thank you, Dad. Like that's awesome. It's funny because growing up so much so it's like we always want what we're not getting kind of thing. Like that point there, it's never enough. Like if she had been getting like all the love and him telling her like how great she was and spending time doing the activities with her, the point probably would have been the opposite. Like, well, how come you're never forking out your cash, Dad? It's
And
just
she actually, and she worked for completely the opposite, for a non-for-profit. So it's
it's just funny how it plays out. It's like being decided, if you will, like conflictual on the sides. Anyways, Gabriel, anything else to add initially, like that you took away?
In terms of the point that everyone was talking, that point everyone likes. A point I liked about the movie was that there was this contract aspect, because he is facing this disease, right? He knows his life is going to end, and he's offered this opportunity, but it's offered in the context as a contract. He's signing, but he's basically doing a transaction, right, with this other company or whatever it is. It's not quite clear. This doctor who is offering him a new body. And so he does this contracting, there's arrangements made, there's bank accounts arranged for when he resurrects, right? So that he can still continue his life. And then what he finds out, which is the whole clue of the movie, is that the arrangement is not what it seemed to be, right? There's like hidden stuff, like the body he gets, it's not what it was presented. It's not actually a new body, it's actually an old body with old memories, right? And he's getting these flashbacks that he doesn't know what to do with. So I found this aspect interesting, where he's actually stepping into something he didn't sign up for at all, right? But then within that, what he actually does through the remainder of the movie is, first he's completely bewildered, of course. He actually creates mayhem. If you look at it, he goes to seek up that woman. He actually creates mayhem and problems. But in the end, he does take responsibility, right? I found that the end of the movie specifically was quite strong, in that he makes that decision to actually say, okay, this is not an acceptable situation. I've actually stolen somebody's life. That's not what I signed up for. And so he decides to give that life back.
Yeah, it's like the final closing scenes, it's kind of like you see that he's totally absolved his identity or ego persona, and it kind of bodes, the question that he's now one with the body or the other guy, or it doesn't matter if he's there or not, because, I mean, through the movie leading up to it, you see that, well, basically he was embodying, the other guy's persona, so to speak, because how he came across in his voice was like the other guy. He just didn't necessarily have all the knowledge of the specific memories of the particular relationship dynamics of the wife and the daughter. But, like the daughter, was very much oblivious to a lot of those points, right, the whole way. Like, for her, the whole time it was...
it was irrelevant in a way. It was totally irrelevant.
Which, it kind of showcases the point of just the living actions, like a good action is a good action, regardless, like who is behind the action, so to speak. Like what's best is what's best kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's you know, being A, being B, being C kind of thing. Cool. Yeah, for me, I found that to be funny, like that you mentioned also about just kind of the contract type point, because you know you see it's like, well, what, I didn't know that was in the small print type thing, and you know it's kind of like I'm getting a raw deal here. I wouldn't have agreed to it, and you know, so much of the dealings in our world, like, I mean, pretty much anything you do on the computer, you click OK for. I mean, even just this Google Hangout, you know,
Absolutely.
I had to click agree. What I didn't really read everything I'm agreeing to here. I mean, I think if anybody had to read everything they were agreeing to, they wouldn't be participating in very much because they'd still be reading that small print, and it's quite ridiculous in a lot of instances.
And also, it's how deceptive it is, because if there's a need to hide that kind of information or to make it so in such a small font, is like, is that actually in my best interest? Otherwise,
Yeah.
it would be just big so that everyone would know, and you would say
Yeah.
yes because I just read it.
It's so funny, yeah, how that is. It's like things are like said in the most vague type way, and then in the small print you have like all the definition of all the different things, which could mean this, that, and then the subclauses that, whatever. Like
And you
totally.
know, sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that, you know, in the movie when at some point he met his friend, and then he's actually realized that his son is also someone else's body, and then he asked, but do you know where that body came from? And then he said, oh, it came from a lab. It came from a lab. So
Right.
like the assumption that technology will actually produce a body without you ever questioning how did it come about, like, so there was this assumption that even people that would have access to all the resources in the world, all the money in the world, they didn't actually care enough just to know what they were going into.
Yeah, I found that point to be rather comical as well, because it was kind of like this point, you know, poof, like it just came from nothing. It was just in the lab, like poof, here it is. Like it's, you know, it has no prior connections or anything like that. It was
Which is
just manufactured.
which in a way is symbolizing the point of ignorance is bliss, right? Which is a very
Totally.
strong point, very strong point in society. There's like, you should, commonsensically, you should ask yourself questions, but because it's just convenient in the moment, you don't. You just don't ask questions.
I noticed another like a point about that, you know, don't ask questions, is where the daughter is asking, you know, the father when he realizes that the doctor who's done all this work has a wife who's old, and he finds her location, and now he wants to go see her because he figures she might know something, and I think she's a doctor also. And so the little girl catches wind that they're going to see a doctor, and because she was quite sick, like earlier on, you know, she's asking like, "Why are we going to the doctor? Like, are you sick, Dad? Like, or am I sick again? Like, what's going on?" You know, question. And he just says, "Go to sleep. Don't worry about it." You know, and like she's just like, "Okay, Dad," like close my eyes, and then just nods off. Like,
Yeah, what's funny in the next scene is everybody's actually sleeping, right? It's like the girl and the woman, they're all just like completely black out.
Yeah, out of it. Like no, like, hey, I'm going in here. Like I have a situation here to deal with. Like just kind of kept totally in the dark about communicating any of that. He's just gone in there, and yeah, I thought that to be a bit ridiculous, just about the communication point, and especially like the authoritative point. You know, where like parents and children, like so often. The point is, you know, kids like to make noise, kids like to ask questions, like they're very upbeat, up-tempo, and, you know, adults can be dull sometimes or just can't handle, like, noise, if you will, and, you know, just have that attitude of, like, oh, just shut up, or, like, you know, Mummy needs her quiet time now, like, just no, go away or go over there kind of thing. And I felt, yeah, they just kind of segued that in, and uh, not necessarily too cool. Like there could have been a little cool dialogue, I think, there, just even with the girl, like maybe her asking questions about life that could have been impacting
Absolute.
Ryan Reynolds, there, the main character, having some like real insight that maybe would have changed his direction in action. But at the same time, if it went that way, maybe it would have shortened the movie and it wouldn't have been as long. So, um, what do you guys think just about the point? I mean, the whole movie kind of envelops it about the point of selfishness. Valentin, let's start with you. Any perspective?
Okay. Yeah, so the point is about wanting to live longer, to extend your life work, and this also everything comes with the consequences. And the similar as everything that is a big perspective in this world, it comes with consequences of collateral damage. Like politicians want to achieve something and there are wars and a lot of people die. And also in this movie, in order for one person to get what he wants, so the extended life, another person had to give his body and his life. And also then when the information spread around about what the reality behind all this is, also all the weaknesses had to be killed. So if something is done from the point of selfishness, a lot of people get harmed in this process.
Cool. I think Mike, are you mute? Are you on mute?
Yeah, I'm here now. Sorry about that. Yeah, Valentina, I totally agree with you on that. Joanna, would you like to say anything on that point?
Uh, well, not specific on that point of selfishness, but I did notice that there was a change in him, and which has to happen in us as well, because initially he did it for himself. He was only considering his own life or death. But what happened in the end, it was actually there was a system change, and that's exactly what has to happen. Because even if you change something, like even if he was to change that, like his situation in the body of someone else, he knew that was not going to be the end of the problems, because as we already spoken about, there was already the kid of his friend that was also using someone else's body, so this would always happen. So he went to the source. He actually went to the lab and destroyed the lab, so that there will be no more experiences like this that save one person's life because they have the money to buy for it, and then they take another person's life because they didn't have they needed the money, so they offered their body. So I found that there was this point of he went from selfish to actually consider what was best for all, and I found that pretty cool. That transition and that change that has to happen in all of us.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. A point about the selfishness that I kind of reflected on in seeing this movie, and it's something that I'd considered before, is just in this one life, like, I mean, we're kind of living in the age of selfishness, very much so, where it's our culture is very much fueled by the me consumerism mentality, and not really kind of the regard for the big picture, like how everything's working together. Just the way, you know, the total world system exists. Like if you think about just even, you know, like commerce, for example, just the way we have, you know, first world countries and third world countries, but in the age of like selfishness, you know, it's just about getting your product, not so much about, you know, the implications, like what was the labor that, you know, went into making your product, so much so because I mean, we live very much in a, you know, a slave labor type of reality because so much of the work is around, you know, lowballing labor, where it's, you know, it's manufactured out. Like while all you guys live in, you know, first world countries, and I know for like myself, I've been looking at the point of, you know, there's not a lot of, let's say, garment manufacturing, you know, clothing manufactured in my country. Like there's a little bit of high-end stuff, but for the most part, you know, every T-shirt, you know, comes from like Asia or something like that. And when you think about it, like there's a lot of ways to make a T-shirt, and you know, they all come from across the world to get here when those things could be made here, and there could be more regard for just the way things are done. So yeah, that was kind of a point of reflection for me, and just about even I guess the mobility of self movement, that, you know, to really care about yourself is to kind of have regard and consideration for others as well, and that's there is a difference between, you know, like a self-interest where it's like considering you at the expense of others, and a self-interest, I guess you could say, like redefined, where you consider yourself, you know, and encompass like everybody else as a part of that. So like, you know, like with the process like we apply of self-forgiveness, where, you know, you're giving yourself the best in a way where it's like, you know, you'd want others to do that for themselves just as well, kind of thing. Gabriel, do you have any further perspective to add on this point?
On this point specifically, not, but just like maybe because, well, in a way, yes, because we're talking about self-interest, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the points in the movies is obviously that he was an old man, rather old, around his 70s, and then he sheds his body, and then they have this nice name for it, is shedding, and then he has a new body, and then initially what he's presented with is how can he maximize that new young body, how can he have the maximum fun with that again, and obviously the first thing he does is he goes seek out partying and women and sex and total promiscuity, and then how that is promoted. And so that would, as you said, that then goes into a very fast rhythm in the movie, like it's the one experience after the other, just party, 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 woman, 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 and which is also the first part of the movie where he's actually just only considering himself, just his own experience, and just having fun, not asking too many questions. And then what I found interesting within that is what I noticed, and this is not just this movie, but it's a pattern I would say in many movies, is that specifically the scene where he does all the flirting and seeing women, is that he then has sex with the one woman after the other, and it's done in a very quick way in terms of the frames in which they show it. And what is interesting in these movies, because I think it happens quite often, that it is depicted like that, where the male has these successive experiences, but then as a viewer, you just get the perspective of the male who's having a great time, but you don't get the perspective of the women that are actually being ditched after just a one-night stand.
Very true. It kind of glorifies it, if you will, where it's like you just often, you know, you just see the women like, yeah, take off her clothes, and then just kind of like flop down for the man, you know, like, and then that's it, like moving on kind of thing. Yeah, that, and I totally see that also, that fast forward type point, and it's almost like instigating like a porn type masturbation point where it's like, quick, 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 just, on to the next, because like you said, it just the pace in the movie in yeah accelerated like exponentially. So
And
um,
on that regard as well, it's almost as if the main reason why he had wanted to extend his life was for the purpose of entertainment. It was for the purpose of continuing or taking a lifestyle where at some point he said, "Oh, I never saw a woman like that in my life," as if finally like having his momentum. So this perspective that people have that they want to stay alive just to maintain a life of status and superiority and having fun. But and that was also like a feel good moment in the movie, because suddenly we're seeing that he was having this. He went through all that thing of almost dying, and suddenly it was like he's feel good. Oh, actually, he's enjoying himself. And then there was another breakdown, because then it's when the memories start coming up. So there was, yeah, the way that the movies show this, which is also about using references from this world as what we feel as the like the comfort and having fun, and then the other bits that are considered as negative, which is actually the real problems that exist in the world. So just to add that.
cool.
Maybe I wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
So talking more about this eternal life point is that this topic of eternal life is often exploited in stories and movies, and as Joanna says, it is indeed then always about entertainment, or it's a great idea that is projected about eternal life. I mean, you also have like Interview with a Vampire or something that has a similar concept about eternal life. But in these movies, the point of responsibility never comes through, and it's interesting because this very question was asked in one of the Destiny messages from a being that was asking, like, imagine if you did in fact live eternally, how would you stand towards the world in terms of your awareness and your responsibility, knowing that you'll be here forever? Well, how would that impact you, right? And so that's actually a mega cool question, but obviously it doesn't come through in the story and in these stories. And yeah, so that's just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's interesting, because even just like in this movie in particular, like how the point was, like being sold as it's extend your legacy or whatever. But like you see the guy in the movie and he's a bit of a loner. Like he's got that one guy who's his buddy, and it's because he's been riding his coattails, so to speak. But yeah, very much like a recluse in a way. And you'd think if this guy is like so great and he knows he's dying, he knows he's been dying for a while, like he'd want to be, educating those around him like as much as possible. So it's kind of like, smooth transitioning, almost like, yeah, you played your part, it's cool, you can go now, like you're done. We don't even need you to like extend your life anymore. Like you shared what you had to share with everybody here. And life goes on, kind of thing like that. But it's almost like the savior type mentality, like, oh, we need these certain people to like extend their lives so that the world can have benefit and whatnot. Because God forbid people taking responsibility and our teachers and kind of like pass the message, share the lessons along. So it's just kind of like we're all in the same class, and we share. Sharing is caring, and so it's like no big deal, kind of, when it's somebody's time to go, because they lived a life of sharing is caring, kind of thing.
I would like to add a point about false propaganda about rich people and creating a stereotype.
Oh
That,
yeah.
because usually rich people in movies have some problems with lives and live some unsatisfied life experience, and this is actually not true in reality. And also in regards to healing sicknesses and illnesses, usually rich people have access to homeopathic drugs, to very healthy food, so they are in a very good state physically. And it also does not make sense that when this rich guy got the new younger body, that he then went after women, and that he was surprised, and he said that he never saw such body before. And what in reality is that rich people can afford to hire high-class escorts, and they sure do have access to the perfect bodies, and they can do with them whatever they want. They can afford. Money brings you a lot of things in life. So this point really did not make any sense to me.
Yeah, that's a cool
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was like a mega billionaire, and yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, it is quite interesting. Like, you look at some, public figure billionaires, and the women they have are typically much younger than them, and of the model type for sure. So yeah, that was kind of out of script. Though we didn't see him with any women prior to that, so yeah, who knows? Maybe he was all up in his work, or once the wife died, we didn't really get much backstory, or at least I didn't pick up much backstory about his wife, because I mean he had a kid with, well, we knew his daughter, but didn't really hear much about the wife. But maybe that was born through an escort or something like that, and he just raised her.
And on that point that Valentin was mentioning, that when people have lots of money, they can have everything, but in fact, the only thing that he wasn't able to get, and that in the end made him taking the decision to still take that contract, was his daughter, and the fact that he couldn't have a relationship with her, even if he tried to give her money. So that was the love and the care for another that she was expecting, and he was simply not educated, or never actually made an effort to build that relationship. And he was an absent father. He was saying he was never there for her. So in terms of time, he wasn't able to buy time, not when she was young, and not later on when he was having this disease. He tried, but it didn't work. So it's the kind of realization that you have this one life. You got to do it the best you can to make sure that when you're gone, you know that you've done everything you could to make your life better, everyone's lives better, and the world better as well. Otherwise, you can't do it later on, because it just doesn't work like that, the bodies we have. So that was such an interesting point, where money, when it comes to life, it's not in an equal point, because simply don't have that yet, as using money to support life and not the other way around. So that was something that I thought would be helpful.
Very cool.
Cool.
Very cool. What did you guys think about the medication point? Because I found this to be a bit ironic, and so forth, just about the status of our world, so much so where almost everybody, it seems, is on some form of medication or another. And in the movie here specifically, the medication is to suppress the memories from coming up.
And also, isn't it interesting that the pills are red?
Take the red pill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah. Or go ahead, Joanna.
I was actually going to say, Gabriel, what's your thoughts on that? On the taking pills to actually live with oneself?
Yeah, well, it looked a bit like candy as well, the pills. So because they were nice and shiny red, and
You're like a jelly bean.
Yeah, indeed, like Candy Crush.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, just to give some context, those pills he took them because if he wouldn't take them, uh, he would basically dissolve in the new body. His awareness would not come through, and it's actually the old person that would come through again. And obviously, he didn't want that. And so he takes these meds as a way to sustain his presence in the new body. And yeah, there's this whole struggle point in the movie about his dependency on those meds, because if he doesn't have those meds, obviously he's gonna be screwed. And there's a lot of people in the movie that apparently depend on these meds. Everybody's taking meds because they all have this body swap going on.
Yeah, I found that to be quite fascinating. It reminded me just, I guess, the first time I'd learned about amnesia, like when you basically forget everything, you lose your memories, like as a result of having some sort of accident. And I always found that point really interesting because, like a lot of people I'd be watching those types of movies with at the time, be like, oh my God, like, very much just experiencing like a sense of lostness, or like, oh, that would be the worst thing ever, like if you lost those memories. I'm wondering like what your guys' perspective is on that, because I always kind of thought like I'm pretty sure I'd be all right, like whether I had these memories or I didn't have these memories, like about these people or not, because usually in the movie you see that the person is fine, they just don't have necessarily like the same identification, the people they're in close relationship with. But it's not like, they can't get that back, so to speak, like through having new, conversation, communication. But yeah, just the whole, I guess, identity in your memories as like how you've defined yourself through the years. Like, how do you feel like, let's say, you have to let go of all that? Is that scary?
You know what? I think when I was like 17, I remember that I was so attached to my memories that I remember to write them down, like things, moments in my life, because I thought, well, if I have an accident or something, I want to remember who I was. And
Oh,
now thinking
nice.
of that is like, whoa, where was I? And then actually, eventually, I did have an accident, and I tried to remember, and I mean, I didn't have amnesia or anything, but I remember to think, like, to wake up and like, where am I? And that was really confusing. But at the same time, nowadays, with the awareness that I've been creating within myself and the self-stability, I find that those memories, if I don't, at first, I just need to know, to understand how they work, and then I create from there. So these days, that relationship to memories is not so much like, it's not emotional or I'm working on that, but rather practical. It's like remembrances, and to learn what I've done in the past, to then learn and to create in the future, if it's beneficial for everyone or not. And that is something that like in the movie, what I found interesting is that even though he still knew who he was just suppressing the memories of this other guy, but he was able to use those memories in a very clever way to find out who was this guy that he was having the memories about. So he was curious, he was investigating the memories, which is something that we do with our own lives with the DIP process. So it's interesting that he was investigating to understand another person's life, but we can do that with our own lives to understand where we come from, like how our ideas come about, and then give us direction. So now memories are more as a tool rather than an emotional attachment to define me. That's it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I totally agree with you on that. And yeah, like that's a practical application of the memories at work. I mean, I find it so fascinating in participating in the Destiny I process, and doing a mind construct where I specifically am going into memories of the past and examining the specifics of the emotions that you know we're connected to them, and just seeing that as I examine such things, that things open up that are a total surprise to me before I really took the time to look at that. And it's I mean, it can be very almost shocking, if you will, in a lot of ways, because you kind of see how you've been in a sort of state of shock unconsciously, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, we really believe that we know what our past is, that we have actual specific memories about what happened before, and a lot of these memories are the basis of us creating resentment, anger towards others. But when we research the details of the memories with writing and with such supporting course like DIP, Desteni I Process, one can see that we have not been very honest, and that our mind changes our memories, it skews them, it distorts them. And if we take then the initiative, the control, and walk our past with full awareness, we can then expose a lot of points where we realize that we did not take responsibility and started to blame others for what we have experienced and felt. So Desteni I Process is a very cool course, and it assisted me a lot in accepting my past, in realizing my self-responsibility, and thus I became emotionally stable. I forgave myself, I forgave others, and now I can create the future that I want, and of course considering everyone as equals and what is best for all, so that I do not cycle in these patterns where I do not take responsibility and harm others.
That's awesome, Valentin. I totally agree with you. And that cycle point, I saw a bit like a glimpse of it in the movie there. Like it looked like an MRI type machine. It was like a big circle, like when they went in to do like the body swap or whatnot, and they did a couple resets later on in the movie, and it was kind of like it reminded me of like seeing your own time loop, if you will, where you participated in a particular behavior pattern based on these memory relations, and then you did the same song and dance over and over again, and you didn't realize you're doing it because you were just kind of going through the motions of being within like a particular train of thought that was fueled with like a particular state of reaction that was triggered by this, that, which essentially originated from your own acceptances and allowances that weren't really being investigated. And like you say, Valentin, within investigating it, we flip the switch, so to speak, where it becomes not so much about pointing the finger outside and blaming, as it does to being self-investigative, where we're self-reflective, bring the point back to ourselves, and realize that that's the empowerment is in looking at relationships, how we relate to this, that, whatever, and not being distanced so much so from everything outside external. And that's kind of the whole bringing the internal and the external together. And in a way, really, I mean, this is kind of like the forefront of eternal life, so much so, where you're kind of we're bringing together the worlds, if you will, your inner world and your outer world, so there's no dissonance, if you will, and it's you understand the 1 + 1 of how you create and how you express yourself, which is very cool. Guys, we are at our time here for the Hangout today, so I want to give each one of you one last opportunity to say some final words. Starting with you, Gabriel.
All right. So yeah, to just pick up on this last topic we talked about the memories. So in general, you could say it's interesting that we would define ourselves according to our memories, right? Like that's actually almost the whole point of that person is when he says I want to continue living. What he's really talking about is he wants his memories to his own memories to continue. He actually just wants to transfer his memories into another body and then give that awareness. So on the one hand, we define ourselves according to our memories, but then as you guys have been saying, in terms of when you investigate yourself in mind constructs and so on, what you see is that you don't actually even know your own memories that well. So how can you say you are your memories? So did you hear me, Mike?
Yes, I did, Gabriel. Thank you for sharing.
So for me, some last thoughts would be that this movie and what we discussed tonight, it just shows the potential within us, that we, no matter how poor or how rich, no matter our upbringing or our memories, we are able to change who we are. And we don't need such an event just as in the movie, just a drastic event to change that. And what I noticed at the end of the movie was when he went back to, he pretended to be a friend of his father, and he went to see her daughter, his daughter, sorry, and he was able to change that relationship. So instead of giving her a check, he actually gave her a letter where he was able to express himself, something that during his life he was never able to do it. So I think this is potential that we have within us, and each one of us, to change the relationship we have with our own lives, and also then to the lives around us and to the world as a whole. So it's quite. It was a. I think it's well done, and I was really grateful to be part of the discussion with you guys. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Joanna. Valentin?
Yeah. So I would like to suggest everyone to consider the life priorities and to value relationships more than money, because when you die, the only thing that you leave behind is how the other people will remember you, how you influence their lives. You cannot take money with you, any possessions, and it would be a cool exercise to imagine that you will die in this moment, and then to look back everything that you've done in the past and think about if you would be born again, what you will be done different. And thanks everyone for participating. I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to the next Hangouts.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, guys. It's been a real pleasure chatting with all of you. I think we could have kept going. But for the sake of the Hangout, we'll wrap up here. And yeah, I'm just going to add on a 2 cents on one of those points at the end of the movie there, where yes, the main character takes the opportunity to speak again with his daughter. It really showcases the point, and Valentin touched on this as well, where you know, like live your life basically like as, you know, this is it, from the perspective of, you know, making your words count, where, you know, he basically, it was like some of the first real words he spoke, because he never really spoke such words to her his whole time he was here. And then him going back, it was like, okay, by me writing this letter saying things in this particular way, it's really going to impact my daughter's life. Like, kind of give her closure on the whole father point. So, you know, she's not going to have maybe such extensive like daddy issues going forward, and yeah, like it just showcasing, you know, our words and how we have the opportunity every day, all the time, to say things, express ourselves in, you know, a plethora of ways, and let's, you know, let's use them. Let's articulate ourselves as today is our last day, because you never know when you're gonna croak.
Absolute.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Everybody who's been watching, thanks. We'll be here again next week. I'll be hosting next week, so stay tuned for an update onto the movie, as right now it is unknown. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.